Major spoilers for Deltarune and Undertale. So my block tree video did well, thanks for that. While I was getting background footage for that video, I decided to read the puzzle sign, just to explore everything the room had to offer. Revolve around the center and look carefully. The darker it gets, the more you can see. That first line sounds like a reasonable puzzle hint for the puzzle you do, revolving around the center and then you see something you couldn't see before. But that second line? I decided to show these two lines very briefly in the video, knowing that they may be important, but I decided it wasn't important enough to record more lines for the video. Surely this doesn't mean anything, right? Well, like many people thought that about the block tree, I thought that about these signs. Then I got some comments. Underneath a comment by Snarlinger, who made a great video about the barrier between diegetic and meta. If you're watching this, then you'd be the type of person who would enjoy that. JFB reminded me about the cryptic eye puzzle sign that reads, "In this world, only eyes blinded by darkness can see the way." After that, I began thinking about it. I knew about the strange sign for the dark bulb puzzle in Queen's Mansion, but I wondered if there were any other cryptic puzzle signs that expand upon darkness in Deltarune. And I couldn't find any others about darkness. There is the talk about the shadow flares and reverse tanning from Susie and Lancer before the forest maze, which is after the block tree room, which is after Starwalker and Eggman. Dang, did they really just cram everything into those rooms? There's even Gaster's entry number 17, but none of those are puzzle signs. If Gaster's entry number 17 is about the same kind of darkness in Deltarune, which I think it is, then photon readings being negative could describe a dark world, meaning there's either 0 photons or there's some sort of inverse photons that have the ability to reverse tan something. Knowing Toby, it's probably both, so that'd line up with other double meanings, with the most popular being Determination, LV, EXP, and Flower. Wait, no, Toby hasn't done that. Either way, both the reverse tanning and Gaster's entry number 17 are about darkness but aren't puzzle signs. So if I didn't find any puzzle signs about darkness, what did I find? And the puzzle sign for it describes it similar to how light works in Castletown. But what about the other puzzles? What do their signs say? If they even have them, which not all of them do. Well, join me today as we discuss cryptic puzzle signs, darkness, and light in Deltarune. Let's go through all the puzzle signs in order of appearance. First we have the eye puzzle. This sign says, "In this land, only eyes blinded by darkness can see the way." We begin this journey in an unfamiliar place that still has yet to be explained, with the writing that describes something unique to this land. This land, which turns out to be a dark world, requires our eyes to be covered in darkness in order to see while in the dark world, assuming that what the puzzle sign says is true. Which actually does bring up the question of who wrote the sign and why, but that's too much. But in our world, and likely the light world of Deltarune, our eyes require light to reflect off of objects into our eyes so that way we can see. So if within a dark world there isn't light, then how are we able to see? And why is everything vibrant? Well, actually not here, but I'll get back to this later, but perhaps vision in the dark world works similar to light, except instead of light, it's dark rays that reflect into our eyes and make things vibrant. The Susie and Lancer reverse tanning dialogue helps support this. The next puzzle was assigned as the timed button puzzle that requires multiple people, the one where Susie just chooses to walk through the spikes. This sign reads, because signs don't speak, "Check the clock. In order to solve this puzzle, you'll have to hurry." For 13 out of the 17 puzzle signs in Deltarune Chapter 1 and 2, they'll just be puzzle hints or instructions. I'm not talking about light or darkness. Not too important, not too unimportant. All have rich flavored text, but only some will fill you up. The next sign is the one that gets vandalized by RK, the Rules card. I'm a Papyrus Knight myself, but I respect Chris Knight. What? No, I don't want to spam fire become a member of the Sweet Captain Cakes. Also, I'm not an Animal Crossing dog. No knight's also good. Rouse reads, "Oh look, Chris, another puzzle." Oh no. Let's read the instructions. Huh? The instructions are vandalized. It says, "Thou's fools! Thou will never figure it out now." Reading instructions, that's definitely against the rules. Then it, says, "P.S. I make my own rules. RK." Well, that explains that. Yes, Ralphie. I think that explains that quite well. Actually, no, that was Susie. Inspecting the sign yourself says, the puzzle description has been smashed into graffitied, where the graffiti is written in overwrought Gothic calligraphy. While this has nothing to do with light and darkness, it does show us how Rules Card tried to stop us by just vandalizing puzzles that are better than the ones he used in Card Castles with a calligraphy pen. Don't worry, Rules, I loved your Chapter 2 fight. It's also interesting that his initials could be misinterpreted as Roaring Knight. Probably just a red herring, right? Well, this is sadly not a Rules Card video, so we won't be talking about him for a while. Also, yes, he will be in Chapter 3, and yes, it does make sense for him to be in the Dream or Dark World, as he's in your pocket, just like Lancer at the end of Chapter 2. 2 rooms above, we get another puzzle sign. This one is for Broken Key C, the one needed for Jevil. This sign decrees, from the bottom, the order of our rooms in Card Castles. Of course, if you haven't been there, you wouldn't know it. Rechecking makes it decree, really emphasizing that it's impossible if you haven't been there. While not about darkness or light, it does bring up the question of who made this puzzle, as it guards a piece of the key needed to unlock Jevil's jail cell. Freedom. My next small theory video will be about Jevil, so stay tuned. There is one question I have, though. Did Sean make this puzzle? Probably. Having lived once in Card Castle is reasonable, as he was the court magician while Jevil was the court jester. Also, magician? Sean writing the sign with a tuft of meta-knowledge fits Sean, as he seems to be more aware than the other Darkners. He wrote it so that someone who would be capable of handling Jevil would not be able to beat it unless they knew what they were doing, and went back for this, or remembered on a new playthrough or looked it up, but Sean wouldn't know that. Right? Right? Then again, any Card Kingdom Darkner could have made this puzzle, like a Rudin or the Jigsaurian Smorgasbord, which guards the puzzle, if the plot value is higher than 150, which is after getting captured at Card Castle. It was probably Sham though, let's be honest. Unless it's Rules playing mind games. One room down and to the right, and we get to the second very, very interesting puzzle sign. The one for the Great Board. This sign confesses, when you step into the light, you'll return to where you were before. Light? At this time of day, in this dark world, in this part of the unused classroom, localized entirely within the floor of a checkerboard.
Yes.
May I see it? Yes. So apart from the whole light and the dark world thing that I'll get to later, is this used anywhere else? Actually, yes it is, and it's much more obvious and noticeable than the sign. Castletown Chapter 2. When we step into the beam of light in Castletown, we return to where we were before, outside the closet, lining up with the information on the Great Board sign. Now I should address the light that happens when you seal a dark fountain, and why you appear in the room and not outside of it or back in the closet. Well, either the annoying dog was doing some sneaky stuff after the fountain of Chapter 1 to move Chris and Susie out of the closet and into the unused classroom, or sealing a fountain works differently. Like Lightners in the Dark World getting placed calmly into the Light World room, close to where they would be. In Chapter 2, we see Susie and Chris towards the entrance, which would make sense as they just jumped in and landed on the table. There is one question I have though. Why can we have a small sliver of light in the Dark World without making everything super bright, causing the Dark World to disappear, or making any Darkner like Ralphie within turn into an object? Well, try this yourself. Go outside. Hold up an object or look at your shadow. If it's nighttime, cloudy, or the sun has exploded, then I'm sorry. Go back inside, turn on the light, and do this. Or you can just watch like a normal person. A shadow on the ground makes the ground darker, but not to the point where we can't see anymore. And in comparison to not seeing at all, I'd say a shadow's pretty bright. Heck, if it's cloudy outside, you can still see easily despite being in the cloud's shadow, and at night, you're in the Earth's shadow, seeing only due to reflected sunlight off the moon. This just leaves one question. Can we see in the shadow of the night's hand? So a real-life shadow shining darkness onto the ground doesn't do much to the world, correct? So why have I gone on a tangent about real shadows? Well, in Deltarune, I'd say the Great Board Puzzle and the Castletown exit room are similar to real shadows. They shine an inverse shadow, which is light, that doesn't do much to a world covered in darkness. This would require a dark world to be made of inverse photons, dark rays, or shadow flares, rather than a dark world just being no light and nothing else. Otherwise, a small amount of light would light up the entire place. Sealing the fountains with light from our soul would be like turning off the lights in a cave, from being able to see to not being able to see. In a cave, we can see due to artificial light, but when the lights are off, there's nothing we can see. No inverse photons either. In Delta Room, we can see due to being blinded by darkness, but when the light takes over again, we can't see for a while, and we can't see the dark world either. There's a lot more I can say about light, but I'll save that for the end of the video. It's interesting, and it's what required the Undertale spoiler warning. Let's get back to the puzzle signs. The first suit puzzle has a sign, so let's read that. It's called Suit Puzzle in the files. I read from the dialog box made from interacting with the sign. Enter the password. Note, due to everyone forgetting the password, it's written at the top. Not much to gain here except that all the Card Kingdom people are bad at remembering the code due to many silly puzzles throughout the kingdom. Also, why did I fail that? The next one isn't really a sign, but it's a vandalized answer at the place where you fight Clover. No, not that Clover. Interacting with this says, it looks like it's supposed to be a solution to a puzzle, but it's vandalized with a calligraphy pen. Looks like the order of the symbols was red, black, red. Rules card strikes again. Vandalizing puzzles to try to stop the Lightners with Gothic calligraphy pen. Calligraphy. Our final puzzle sign for Chapter 1 is the one in the block tree room. Revolve around the center and look carefully. The darker it gets, the more you can see. It appears we have reached a return. As we rotate around the center, for some unexplained reason, the world around Chris gets darker, apart from the ground outlines and the bullets and spawner. However, the block tree switch becomes visible, fully visible when the ground and Rouse are no longer visible. If we go back to the eye puzzle, it said that only eyes blinded by darkness could see the way. To see the switch that we need to proceed, the world needed to become darker, allowing us to see more in the dark world, and the way gets shown to us. My block tree video provides the idea that the block tree switch is a preview of a Neo-Dark World Darkener, or a Darkener. Neo-Dark World meaning a dark world within a dark world, like what Birdly was about to make in Chapter 2, and possibly hinted at by Gaster in entry number 17 in the chair for the sweepstakes. The only reason we'd be able to see the block tree switch as a Darkener without being a Neo-Dark World would be if the area around us became darker, allowing us to see what would happen along this prophesized way. If being blinded by darkness allows us to see both the way forward and see more, then what does being blinded by darkness actually mean? I'll get into how you actually see while in the dark world later, but for this sign, do we take it literally and say there's some substance of darkness covering eyes? Or can you take it metaphorically and say something along the lines of being blinded by fiction, allowing you to see more ways for a story to go? Perhaps this would be like a fanfiction writer that could even be Gaster himself, in a way similar to how Molly Stars says in the Device Theory Part 3. If you haven't seen Molly Stars' Device Theory, then I'd highly recommend it, given that you're watching a puzzle analysis video on Deltarune. Anyways, some people said that the block tree puzzle looks like a clock, and it... Wait a minute. It has 12 normal trees permanently. I say normal trees permanently as the 13th is the block tree switch, and the 14th blocks the way. It might look like you can walk around it, but that's definitely not the case. It's the one that disappears after you flip the switch. I don't have an explanation for what being a clock would mean, but perhaps someone else can come up with something. It goes counterclockwise if that helps. Anyways, that brings us to the end of Chapter 1's puzzle signs. There were lots of them. Some were just flavor text, while others had very cryptic messages. Now for Chapter 2. Eventually. You see, I haven't finished editing Chapter 2 because it takes forever to do this, but I wanted to get Chapter 1 out there just so I can get some feedback. So, if you have any feedback, leave a comment down below and hopefully I will read it. I had a ton of fun making this first part, and I'll have the other part done hopefully in a month, maybe? Let's see, it'll be like, let's say double the length of this one with twice the amount of tangents. And let me tell you, you're not going to be prepared for what the dark bulb switch puzzle does. And it's not even the dark bulb part, it's the room removal. What's room removal, you may ask? Oh, that's going to be a big tangent. And then you also get to look forward to Undertale and Napstablook, so that's going to be cool. But yeah, anyways, if you have any feedback about this, leave a comment. If that's possible, I think, hopefully. Because, like, I'm not just, like, this person that knows everything. You know, the only reason it sounds smart is because I wrote it in a script and I edited that script and it took like a long time, but... Well, anyways, thank you for watching and I'll hopefully see you later for when the full version of this releases. Now I have to make a thumbnail that's like work in progress just to differentiate between this.